Jesus today offers some remarkably strong words. If your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. If your hand causes you to sin, chop it off. If your foot causes you to sin, remove it. Could you imagine if we took this gospel passage literally, walking around with eye patches, hooks for hand, and wooden legs? We don't look like a bunch of pirates. We know that this passage is not meant to be taken literally, but it is intended to be taken seriously. That's why Jesus used such a powerful analogy, such a brutal analogy, because he wanted his disciples to understand. He wants us to understand how important and how essential it is that we in our discipleship strive with great effort for holiness. That whatever in our lives gets in the way of holiness, whatever leads us into temptation, whatever causes us to sin, that we not shrink away from the difficult task of getting rid of it. He challenges us in the strongest possible words to be holy. But there's another challenge to this gospel as well. And the challenge to this gospel passage comes at the beginning of the reading. Jesus was walking with his disciples, and they saw a man casting out demons. And the apostles judged that man. The apostles went to Jesus and said, "You got to stop this guy because he's doing something wrong." And Jesus said, essentially, don't judge him. If he's doing a mighty deed in my name, he can't be against us. That the greatest priority for we who are disciples not only is to strive to avoid what leads us to sin, but also to be certain that we never judge others. That the gospel passage has at its beginning the command never to judge, and at its conclusion the strong invitation to turn away from whatever leads us to sin, so that we understand the balance and the severity of our life of holiness, that we strive in every way that we can to be holy and distance ourselves from evil, but also never, ever judge anyone on their journey, in their wrestling with holiness. Likewise, our first reading. The story behind the first reading is a little bit more complicated. Moses was busy. I know no one here knows what it's like to be busy. He was tasked with the job of leading the people. And he said, "Lord, I'm getting too busy. You got to give me help." So God said, "Okay, we're going to bless 70 people to assist you. I'm going to send a share of the Spirit with which I blessed you, Moses. I'm going to send it on them." Here's where the story gets kind of interesting. They all gathered to worship, like we are now. And God sent his Spirit upon them. But two people skipped class. Again, I know no one here ever skips class. Eldad and Medad, that was their name, they didn't go to the gathering. They didn't go, if you will, they didn't gather to worship. They didn't go to church. But God still sent his Spirit upon them. That God, as he blesses us with his Spirit, as he strengthens us with his grace, it does not matter where we are in our journey. It does not matter where we are in our struggle or whatever our struggle is. God still desires to bestow his Spirit, his grace upon us. I love Family Weekend. Because there are people here, students here, who, if your mom and dad hadn't brought you, I wouldn't have seen you otherwise. Kind of like Eldad and me did. I tell you, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so thrilled that you're here. Because I believe very sincerely in what Jesus said to the apostles, you must never judge anyone. And so what I want to say to you, wherever you are, whether this is your first time joining us, welcome. Whether you're here every weekend, and I recognize a lot of faces, you'll never be judged here. As I greet you at these doors, sometimes I worry that there's a bit of a reputation at Elon, that people worry that if Father Peter knew what happened on Friday night and Saturday night, he wouldn't want me. That's not true. I will always greet you, if you want, with a hug. I love hugs. Whether you want it or not, you're getting a smile. Because the reality is, it's not just me, but all of us are challenged never to judge one another. That as we wrestle with our own difficulty with sin, we can't judge one another, and you won't be judged here, I promise. But I ask you one thing. Wherever you are, whether this is your first time with us or you're here every weekend, wherever you are in your journey, just open your lives a little bit, in some small way. Let that same spirit that God gave to those 70 elders, let that spirit come upon you. Because I promise you it's here. I promise you God is at work just as much here and now as he was so many thousands of years ago in the time of Moses. If you can, to whatever measure you're able, open your lives just a little bit more to the power of that spirit. Work just a little bit more to be holy and distance yourself from whatever is your struggle. Because wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be an incredible moment in the life of our community if we could say what Moses said at the end of that first reading? How wonderful it is that all of God's people were holy. How wonderful it would be if the Lord would bless all of you with his Spirit.